Derek sat quietly on a worn leather chair in the lobby of the Grand Royale Hotel, a five-star palace in the heart of the city. The bright chandeliers overhead glittered like diamonds, casting a warm glow over the eager faces of the guests bustling all around him. He felt out of place, as if a small fish had suddenly found himself swimming in an ocean of sharks. He ran a hand through his short, neat hair, glancing at the marble flooring beneath his feet. His feet rested on a world so much larger than him, a world of luxury and power that felt like an untouchable dream, yet here he was, in a suit that was a size too big, with a wallet that was far too thin. Derek had been saving for months, working overtime at the shipping dock, catching every possible hour. Each paycheck held the weight of his hopes, a desperate bid to escape his ordinary life, and tonight was the night he would indulge in that escape. The Grand Royale was famous for its sumptuous elegance and the rich people who graced its halls. With each passing moment, he could feel the tension rising in his chest. He glanced at his watch. The event was set to start soon. He had no idea how he had gotten invited, but a friend of a friend had secured one extra ticket to this charity gala one he could not afford to miss. This was his chance to feel what it was like to be someone else, someone important. Watched as guests arrived in droves, elegantly dressed and laughing together. Their laughter felt like a foreign language, a melody that drifted over him while he stood silently, feeling more like a mere observer than a participant in greatness. Suddenly, the elegant door swung open again, and in walked the kind of man who turned heads, a tall man in an incredibly tailored suit, skin bronzed like he had just stepped off a sun-kissed beach. A hint of confidence hung around him like an expensive cologne. Derek could feel the collective gaze of the lobby shift towards the man. He was surrounded by various labels, a symphony of designer brands, and each piece seemed to shout from the rooftops of wealth. Derek looked down at his plain shoes, wishing he had worn something nicer. He felt small under the weight of those perfect outfits and confident smiles. The valet approached the man with reverence, taking his keys and bowing his head slightly with respect. "Your car, Mr. Warren," the valet said, his voice polished, crafted by years of serving the elite. Soon, a sleek black luxury car glided through the entrance, and Derek's breath caught in his throat. The car's engine hummed with power, and its curves gleamed under the chandelier lights like a work of art. Every detail screamed of careful craftsmanship and wealth. Derek's heart ached with longing. He imagined sliding into the plush leather seats, the scent of luxury wrapping around him. But that was just a fantasy, one he could never touch. His life was filled with the sound of heavy machinery and the scent of faded hopes, not the smooth purr of a high-end engine. As he waited for the elevator to take him to the gala, he clutched the ticket in his pocket, feeling how small it was compared to the grandeur surrounding him. It was a simple slip of paper, but it felt like the door to an alternate reality. His fingers rubbed over it, over the embossed letters that promised an evening of luxury. The elevator doors opened quietly, and Derek stepped inside. The inside was mirrored, reflecting the man he didn't quite recognize. As the elevator ascended, he practiced his smile in the gleaming glass. He needed to look confident, but inside he was trembling, fear and doubt battling for control. The door suddenly jolted open on the 5th floor, and a wave of laughter and music washed over him like a warm breeze. He took a deep breath, adjusting the too big collar of his suit, and stepped out into a world bursting with life. The ballroom was alive with laughter, chatter, and the clinking of glasses. Beautiful people danced and mingled under a sea of twinkling lights and shimmering decorations. He shifted from foot to foot, straddling the line between exhilaration and panic. In those moments, he felt a delicate balance between them, and it left him dizzy. A table laden with exquisite hors d'oeuvres beckoned him, and he found himself gravitating toward it, hoping to blend in, if even for a brief moment. He picked up a small pastry, taking a hesitant bite. It was a taste he had never experienced, a burst of flavor that felt both indulgent and terrifying. He savored every crumb as if it were a piece of the life he was hungry for. As he stood there, a woman in a stunning silver gown caught his eye. She had an effortless grace, moving through the crowd like she belonged on a stage. She stopped, noticing him, and for the briefest moment their eyes locked. His heart raced, and he felt a surge of hope. She asked, her voice smooth like silk, a bright smile enhancing her beauty. It's incredible," he stammered, suddenly feeling the weight of his own inadequacies. She chuckled softly, and he noticed the genuine nature of her warm, inviting demeanor. "You seem a bit lost," she remarked, tilting her head slightly. "Yeah," he confessed, the truth rolling off his tongue with ease. "Well, don't be shy." Her words felt like a small act of kindness, erasing the invisible wall he felt around him. Derek smiled, buoyed by her warmth. They spoke for a while, and with each sentence she pulled him deeper into the conversation, making him forget his insecurities. For moments he was lost in her laughter, and for the first time that night he felt like he was not just a backdrop, but a part of this vibrant scene. But soon he noticed the man in the tailored suit again, the one he had seen at the entrance. He was surrounded by people, his voice commanding attention, the laughter and admiration of those around him lifting him to a pedestal. Derek felt a wave of envy wash over him, an emotion he despised but couldn't shake off. The woman caught his gaze and followed it, a "Oh, that's Martin Warren. He's a big investor in the city," she said, her tone shifting slightly. Derek straightened, intrigued. She leaned closer, her voice lowered as if sharing a secret. "People say he's a bit ruthless." Suddenly, the elegant ballroom felt charged with tension. As the laughter around them swelled, Derek felt exposed. Here he was, in a world of luxury, but surrounded by people who'd step over each other to climb higher. While dancing with the woman, Derek noticed the way the guests around them engaged with Martin. Their laughter was lively, yet it held an undercurrent of something darker, the bittersweet taste of ambition. He had met brilliant minds, hard workers, and yet he couldn't help but ask himself at what cost. Amid this revelry, a voice cut through the chatter, commanding and authoritative. "Gentlemen, ladies," Martin's penetrating gaze swept over the crowd. Derek felt a rush of hope pricked with vulnerability. Perhaps this evening was not just a fairy tale of glamour, but an opportunity to do something meaningful, even in a world often defined by excess. Time slipped away unceremoniously, and laughter gave way to deeper conversations about change and impact. Derek found himself mingling with those who shared their visions of the world around them, a beautiful tapestry of ideas. He felt a spark growing in him, a sensation he had longed for in his mundane existence. As the evening progressed, he caught glimpses of Martin alone, emboldened by his charm yet haunted by something beneath his confident exterior. Derek envied the man, but he also recognized him, a man fueled by ambition yet blinded by the very desire for success that also imprisoned him. In a rare moment of stillness, he stepped back from the crowd, taking a breath, hoping to ground himself. Just then he saw the valet polish the luxury car, a vision of power and allure waiting just outside. The man in the tailored suit approached, keys in hand, a wide smile on his face. Martin asked as he walked toward the gleaming vehicle. Derek watched with wide eyes, feeling that familiar bitterness rising again. That car wasn't just a possession. It symbolized everything he dreamed of but felt he could never attain. Yet as if sensing Derek's gaze, Martin turned. His eyes caught Derek's for a second, and there was a flicker of strange connection, a moment where it felt like they were both aware of the weight that came with the roles they played in life. The valet opened the driver's door with a smooth elegance, and Martin slipped into the luxurious seat as though it were his throne. The engine roared to life, and the sound sent shivers down Derek's spine. Just then, the woman in the silver gown arrived beside him, startling him from his reverie. "You look like you've seen a ghost," she said with a playful nudge. "More like an ambition," he replied, his voice soft. She studied him for a moment, her expression shifting from playful to understanding. Desire can be both a blessing and a curse. It drives us, but it can also be a prison. He met her eyes with resolve. "By defining your success on your terms," she murmured, "you are not defined by what you lack, but by what you strive for." Her words resonated deep within him, allowing light to trickle through the shadows of self-doubt that had coiled around his heart. With renewed courage, Derek turned back toward the gala. No longer just an observer, his heart pulsed with possibility. He would not let wealth guide him. Instead, he would follow his values, his dreams. As guests whispered jovially, an awareness of what could be swirled in the air, he felt his own ambitions beginning to transform. In that moment, he realized he could belong, not because of a luxury car or a designer suit, but through authenticity, a fierce determination to rise beyond the limits he had constructed around himself. And yes, perhaps someday, he too would glide through those doors, not off the back of someone else's dream, but of his own making. As the night wore on and the laughter echoed, the vision of Martin slipping into his luxury car faded, replaced by the clearer image of Derek stepping forward into this vast world, a world where he could carve his own destiny amidst those shimmering, infinite possibilities. He stood there, heart racing, as the elevator door slid open, revealing a glistening lobby that felt like an alien world. Derek felt the weight of eyes on him, the judgment and curiosity swirling in the air like smoke. He wasn't sure what he was doing there, but his reason for being in the Grand Lux Hotel's grand foyer was as big as his dreams. He had arrived an hour earlier, checking in at the desk with shaky hands, his palms slick with sweat. The receptionist had barely glanced at him, too busy smiling at the well-dressed couple behind him, their laughter echoing in a place where he'd only ever imagined stepping foot. The scent of polished wood and expensive perfume filled his nose, overwhelming him with a concoction of envy and hope. "Room 503, the receptionist said, slipping him a key card, her voice dripping with indifference. He took it, his fingers brushing against the cool plastic, his heart hammering in his chest. As he made his way to the elevator, he felt like he was moving through a dream that felt both thrilling and terrifying. The carpet beneath his feet was plush, inviting him into a world where he could almost convince himself he belonged. Shiny marble tiles lined the walls, and he glimpsed chandeliers sparkling like stars trapped in glass. Imagining his life in such luxury sparked something within him, a desperate flicker of ambition burning brighter than he'd ever felt before. asked a voice pulling him from his thoughts. He realized he was standing in front of the elevator, lost in a whirlwind of his own aspirations. 5, he replied, his voice quieter than he intended. The elevator whirred softly, pulling him up to the 5th floor, where the gala was about to take place. He took a deep breath, forcing himself to wipe the anxious sweat from his brow. When the doors opened, the sounds of laughter and music flooded in like a crashing wave. His heart pounded louder. Each step felt like a leap. He had only come for a quick look, but it was hard to deny the magnetic pull of those around him. He stepped out into the hallway, clutching the key tightly. He wanted to feel like he belonged in this world, even for just a night. As Derek approached the ballroom doors, he hesitated, the vision of glistening gowns and tuxedos causing a twinge of doubt in his mind. What was he doing here? He was just an ordinary guy from a small town, not someone who belonged in a world of affluence and prestige. Just then, a couple brushed past him, laughing, enveloped in their bubble of confidence. The flash of a camera caught his eye, capturing a perfect moment that made him acutely aware of his own mundanity, but he couldn't turn back. This was an opportunity to taste something new, something more. He pushed through the doors, heart pounding, and stepped into the vast ballroom. The sight before him was breathtaking. Golden light spilled from chandeliers, reflecting off crystal glasses held high. At the center, a string quartet played, their music floating up to the high ceilings like the dreams that had brought him here. Here, Derek felt even smaller. His jeans and button-down seemed too plain, drowning in a sea of silk and satin. He drifted toward the edges, hoping to blend into the shadows without being noticed. Guests mingled, their conversations punctuated by laughter and confidence while he watched, feeling like an outsider peering through a glass. Across the room, a man in an impeccable suit caught his attention, exuding an aura of charisma that drew people in. The man spoke with animation, his gestures exaggerated, laughing easily while his friends surrounded him, hanging on his every word. That's Martin Warren, he thought, recalling the name he'd heard whispered around the gala. Martin was a local legend, a businessman adored and feared, a man whose success was built on a series of calculated risks. He wielded influence like a sword. With a flick of his wrist, he changed the game for everyone around him. Derek felt a mix of admiration and resentment wash over him. What would it be like to speak with such confidence? How would it feel to walk into a room and have all eyes on him? As he stood there watching, the atmosphere around Martin shifted. A waitress glided by, balancing a tray of champagne flutes. Martin reached for one, raising it in a toast to his friends, and their laughter erupted again, echoing against the walls like a siren's call. Derek swallowed hard, shaking himself from his musings. He noticed the valet station at the entrance, a sleek line of luxury cars waiting for their owners. He couldn't help but imagine himself sliding into one of those smoothly designed interiors, commanding the streets like Martin did, drawing admiration and envy from strangers. When he glanced back to the crowd, he saw Martin sidling up to a woman in a stunning gown, nudging her playfully, and her laughter rang out like music. "You have to hear about my latest investment," Martin said, leaning closer, his voice confident and alive. Suddenly, Derek felt a nudge against his arm. A woman with fiery red hair grinned at him, her eyes sparkling. "I was just observing," he stuttered, feeling even more exposed. "Observing," she laughed, grabbing his wrist and pulling him toward the crowd. "Come on," he hesitated, but her energy was contagious. Almost against his will, he found himself laughing along with her, swept into a conversation that opened doors he never thought possible. Time slipped away, and before long they were swapping stories about dreams and ambitions, the world outside fading as they formed a little oasis amidst the gala. Hours passed, and Derek felt different, like he was a part of the magic rather than just a spectator. He shared thoughts about his work at the shipping dock, how every crate carried a new adventure, and the passion simmering in his chest ignited more than he ever expected. Yet just when the night felt full of promise, a heavy rumble broke through the music. The doors opened, and in walked an unmistakably grand entrance. Martin, flanked by two elegantly dressed guests, captured everyone's gaze again. But tonight was different. This time he was focusing his attention on the woman next to him, offering her a lighter moment amidst the opulence. Derek observed Martin boasting about the generous donations they would raise tonight. His charm radiated, weaving a spell around the crowd that drew them in like moths to a flame. In that moment, Derek felt an inner conflict wash over him. He admired Martin's charisma, but was that what true success meant? Fame and fortune narrowed to transactional relationships. He pushed those thoughts aside, forcing himself to stay in the moment. Suddenly, the valet appeared beside him, the same polished smile shining brightly against the backdrop of luxury cars. Derek's brow furrowed. "Mine." The valet tilted his head slightly, eyes narrowing in confusion. He handed Derek the keys to a stunning silver sports car, sleek and shining under the foyer lights. Heart pounding, Derek stammered, "No, I..." The valet's smile never wavered, a curious glint in his eye. Derek felt the weight of disbelief settle in like a dense fog. The valet gestured to a small sign behind him, detailing a unique raffle for the guests attending that night. As Derek read the names, his own was boldly displayed in shimmering letters. It seemed he had won an extravagant prize with no prior knowledge. The world around him spun, disbelief rooting him to the spot. So this was what it felt like to step into another's shoes, to clutch the dreams he had yearned for all his life. He glanced back to the grandeur surrounding him, a cocktail of emotions washing over his bewildered heart. The valet asked, giving a polite nod. He took a deep breath, processing everything that had happened in those brief seconds. Could he really claim this prize? The memories of staring at that luxury car mere moments ago, longing for something unattainable, now felt absurd, and yet here it was, delivered right to him. Yeah, let's do it," he said, newfound determination setting fire to his veins. He followed the valet out to the entrance, and as the door swung open, he gasped, unable to look away from the beauty before him. The sparkle of the car's exterior reflected the dreams he had kept hidden deep within himself. "Here she is," the valet said, opening the door with elegance. Derek sank into the plush leather seat, the gentle hum of the engine awakening every sense he had. This was more than just a car, it was a feeling, a promise, that every step he had taken had led him to this moment. He gripped the steering wheel, sensation flooding through him like electricity. Excitement coursed through his blood. As he glanced back toward the hotel doors, he spotted Martin glancing his way, eyes widening in surprise. Derek smiled, the light glinting as the ignition roared to life. In that moment, he understood the power of stepping outside comfort. He realized he didn't need to be like Martin, he just needed to be himself. Turning the car onto the street, he felt the surge of freedom wash over him. With every mile, he took not just the path of wealth and luxury, he chose to travel the road of possibility, where he could define his own success. And as the night stretched before him like an unwritten story, he was ready to write every chapter, the laughter, the struggles, the triumphs, all echoing the rhythm of his heartbeat, fueled by ambition and burning with dreams that were finally within reach. He stepped into the lobby of the Sterling Dreams Hotel, and as the doors closed behind him, he felt like he was leaving behind the world he knew. The air was different here, heavy with the scent of polished wood and something floral, almost dizzying. Elegance wrapped around Derek like a blanket, but it felt too warm and too tight. He looked down at his scuffed shoes, feeling small in a room filled with marble floors and chandeliers that sparkled like stars lost in the daylight. Derek took a deep breath, the kind of breath that filled lungs with both hope and anxiety. It was the kind of night that whispered promises of change, and he had a role to play. He shuffled to the front desk, glancing around at well-dressed couples, their laughter floating past him like petals in the wind. They moved with a confidence that made his hands feel sweaty and unsure. The receptionist asked, barely looking up from her computer. Yeah. His voice wavered slightly, almost swallowed by the grandeur around him. With a few clicks, she handed him a key card, room 508. She flashed a quick smile before turning back to her screen. He watched as she interacted with the next guest, her demeanor changing, her eyes lighting up. A pang of envy twisted in his gut. What would it feel like to matter, to demand attention? He turned, clutching the key card like it was some kind of lifeline, and headed toward the elevators. The elevator ride felt like an eternity, the numbers ticking slowly up, each floor a reminder that he was heading further away from the life he knew. He could see it in his mind, the shipping dock, the heavy crates, the respite of the night shift. This was a world so far from that, it was dizzying. When the doors opened, he stepped out into a hallway bathed in soft golden light. Room 508 felt so far away, yet so tantalizingly close. He could start anew here if he wanted to. He could slip into the persona he dreamed of, someone who deserved to inhabit this space. Derek stood in front of the door, the metal key card gleaming in his palm. He swiped it, the soft beep unlocking a door to possibilities he often labeled as fantasies. The door swung open and he was greeted by a serene room, a plush bed, and a view that overlooked the city, glowing like 1,000 diamonds. He stepped inside, letting the door click shut behind him. It was a moment to breathe, to take it all in, the stillness wrapping around him like a soft embrace. But as he stood by the window, the rising pulse of excitement was quickly eclipsed by a sudden doubt. Who was he to be here, to occupy this space? The world outside, bustling and vibrant, seemed to remind him of the life he was escaping, yet unsure he could truly leave behind. After a moment, he shook off the hesitation and decided to explore. He took the elevator back down to the lobby, his heart racing with a cocktail of thrill and fear. Tonight was important. It was a charity gala that promised connection, influence, and perhaps a taste of a life he craved. Each step brought him closer to a gathering where he could imagine himself as someone else. As he re-entered the lobby, he let the ambience wash over him. Couples danced through the space, their laughter mixing with the sounds of tinkling glasses and soft music. It felt like a scene from a movie, and for a moment he was just a spectator, wide-eyed and hopeful. And then he spotted a group near the grand entrance, their casual banter igniting a fire of curiosity in him. Among them stood a man in a tailored navy suit, his posture exuding an effortless charm. Derek knew this was Martin Warren, the influential figure everyone whispered about, a man whose name echoed power through the circles he navigated effortlessly. Derek observed as Martin laughed, the way he commanded attention with just a smile. He wondered if he could ever capture such grace. Behind Martin, a lineup of luxury cars glimmered like shiny jewels, each one almost whispering promises of allure and prestige. A voice pulled Derek from his thoughts. It was a woman, bright-eyed with a hint of mischief. He replied, blinking. "The gale is not going to come to you, you know," she said playfully. "Right," he managed to respond, a smile starting to tug at the corners of his lips. She stepped closer, extending her hand. "I'm Riley." "Derek," he said, shaking her hand, feeling the warmth of her personality. Together they ventured into the festivities, weaving through the crowd like petals in a stream. Riley pulled him into conversations, introducing him to people who, while initially intimidating, were warm and welcoming. Derek's confidence slowly unfurled, blooming as he shared snippets of his life, and they responded with enthusiasm. Laughter echoed between them, filling spaces with a sense of belonging he hadn't anticipated. It felt like a dream, except it was real, and he was finally stepping into the light. Yet amidst the joy, Martin remained an imposing figure. Derek found his gaze drawn back to him time and time again, watching how he effortlessly shifted from group to group, weaving through laughter, charm, and connections. Derek's envy was a palpable force, tugging at his heart while a part of him ached to be noticed like that. Then, a soft ding erupted, punctuating one of Martin's tales. Derek looked up toward the entrance again, realizing the clock was pushing toward the highlight of the evening, a grand announcement. People shifted their focus to Martin, anticipation crackling in the air. "Ladies and gentlemen," Martin's voice rang out, smooth and commanding, "thank you for joining us tonight." Applause swept through the room like a tide. Eyes around the room brightened, murmurs of excitement sparking. Derek's heart raced, a luxury car. The thought of gliding behind its wheel flooded him with fantasies he had kept tucked away. And then, almost as if sensing him, Martin locked eyes with Derek. A flicker of recognition passed between them. Was it possible he could understand what was happening inside Derek's restless heart? Tonight's grand prize is more than just a car. It's a chance to dream bigger than you ever thought you could, Martin proclaimed, pacing across the stage with an ease that mesmerized the audience. The air buzzed with energy. Derek felt himself pulled into a current of possibility, a wave rising to carry him beyond doubt. When the raffle ticket was finally drawn, Derek held his breath. There was a distant part of him that expected nothing. After all, dreams often felt like mirages, shimmering and close yet eternally out of reach. But as the name was called, he felt the universe shift beneath him. "Ticket number 523, Martin chimed, his smile blindingly radiant. When it registered, the world around him dissolved into a haze. Derek stood frozen, eyes wide, heart pounding like a drum in his chest. Could it really be? Was this a mistake? Suddenly Riley was tugging at his arm, her eyes wide with excitement. She shouted, and in that moment a tsunami of disbelief swelled through him. He took a shaky step forward, feeling the gaze of the room settle on him as though he were a deer caught in the headlights. He approached the stage, each step feeling like a combination of disbelief and disbelief as he mounted the small platform. Martin asked, presenting the dazzling sheet of paper toward him. Derek nodded, speechless, a whirlwind of exhilaration and an undercurrent of fear crashing through him. Martin continued, tossing his arm around Derek's shoulders, enveloping him in an embrace that suddenly brought a rush of warmth. The clinks of glasses and cheers erupted, vibrating through the air. Derek stood there overwhelmed, an expression of joy mixed with disbelief coloring his features. This moment wasn't just about winning a car. It was a vindication of all he had worked for, all the dreams he had fought to envision. Martin leaned in closer, his voice lowering to a conspiratorial whisper. "Remember, this is more than a prize. It's a reminder. Don't ever let anyone tell you that you don't belong." Derek's heart raced as the truth of those words settled within him. Suddenly the laughter, the pomp, and the warmth of the crowd didn't feel foreign anymore. This was his moment, his breakthrough, a silent vow echoing within him to embrace a life where he defined what success meant for him. As cheers erupted and he posed for photos beside the luxury car that shimmered under the stage lights, he felt the roots of determination growing stronger inside him. This was just the beginning. He set the wheel of destiny in motion, and the path ahead shimmered with countless possibilities. Once the crowd dispersed, the valet approached and handed Derek the keys to the car, a silver machine gleaming like a star in the moonlight. "Congratulations on your win. She's ready whenever you are," he said with a grin. Walking toward the car, he couldn't help but feel the weight of those keys, not just as metal, but as symbols that transformed the ordinary into the extraordinary. As he slid into the driver's seat, the plush interior enveloped him in luxury. His fingers danced over the steering wheel, the engine growling to life. Riley appeared alongside him, a playful smile on her lips. "Like I've been handed a new life," he replied, his voice rising with excitement. As they drove away from the hotel, the city lights whisked by, illuminating dreams once held at bay. With every turn of the wheel, he felt the world shift under him. This was not simply a luxury car, it was a gateway to everything he had ever wanted. As they sped through the night, laughter and music intertwined, Derek realized this experience would redefine who he was. The journey was no longer about just escaping. Now it was about turning the fantasies of his youth into a vibrant reality, one filled with purpose and ambition. With the warm wind in his hair and the city sprawled out before him like a canvas, Derek made a silent promise to himself. He would raise his head high on this path. He would drive forward with intent, not just as the boy from the shipping dock, but as a man who could grasp his dreams and weave them into the fabric of reality. He stepped through the revolving doors of the Crestwood Hotel, the cool air-conditioned breeze washing over him like a breath of fresh opportunity. But the moment he entered, a wave of uncertainty hit. The lobby was filled with finely dressed guests, their laughter echoing against marble floors and gilded walls. No one seemed to notice him, no one except for the valet who stood at attention, waiting to assist the next guest. Derek took a moment to gather himself, subtle terror bubbling in his gut. He had been dreaming of this night for weeks, a charity gala that promised a chance to network, to step out of his monotonous life as a delivery driver and into something more. But standing there, he felt like an imposter in a world of wealth and glamour. With a shaky hand, he approached the reception desk where a woman typed away on her computer, barely glancing up at him. "Good evening," she asked, her voice monotonous. "Yes, Derek Matthews," he replied, his voice quieter than he intended. She typed his name, frowned slightly, and then handed him a key card. "Room 407, thanks," he muttered, feeling the cool plastic card in his palm. He turned and headed toward the elevator, the weight of the world pressing on his shoulders. What was he even doing here? The contrast between his faded jeans and their tailored suits was almost laughable. As the elevator doors closed, he closed his eyes for a brief moment, willing himself to breathe. He had worked too hard to let nerves derail him. This was a moment to seize, a chance to change his life. When he reached his room, he tossed his bag on the small bed and took a look out the window. The city buzzed below, a canvas of lights against the darkening sky. He imagined himself intertwined in it, moving through it all with purpose. But for now, he was just a shadow, someone who blended in rather than stood out. After a few minutes of pacing in his room, he decided he couldn't waste another second. He took a deep breath, adjusted his wrinkled shirt, and headed back out. The gala was downstairs, and it was time to step into the unknown. With every step back to the elevator, excitement spiraled through him, mingling with doubt. As the doors opened again, a heart-stopping symphony of music and laughter washed over him. He stepped into the ballroom, a space that felt almost surreal. Crystal chandeliers hung above, casting warm light over elegantly dressed guests swirling in rhythm to the live band. The atmosphere was electric, each individual shining with confidence. Derek felt small and out of place again, standing at the threshold of a life he yearned for but had never experienced. He scanned the room, searching for someone to connect with, utterly aware of how each laughter held a story he couldn't quite touch. Just then, a familiar face caught his eye. It was Martin Warren, the esteemed business mogul whose name had echoed through the charity's promotional material. Martin surveyed the crowd, exuding charisma as he mingled effortlessly among guests. Each word he spoke drew laughter like a magnetic force. Derek's heart raced. Could this man be the key to opening doors for him? As he edged closer to the bar, he felt a light tap on his shoulder. It was a woman with bright red hair cascading like a waterfall, eyes sparkling with mischief. Just checking it out," he replied, feeling awkward yet instantly intrigued. "I'm Riley," she said, a playful grin lighting her face. "You should join us." For a brief moment, the knot in Derek's stomach loosened. "I'm Derek," he managed, smiling back cautiously. Riley led him toward a group of people seated around a large round table. They welcomed him with genuine warmth, and as the conversations flowed, he began to feel a sense of belonging. They laughed at stories, shared dreams, and for the first time that evening he allowed himself to feel hope, a flicker that perhaps he could belong to. While the atmosphere buzzed around him, Derek's gaze wandered back to Martin. The room felt electric with anticipation, and Martin's presence loomed larger than life. He could feel unspoken ambitions wrapping around him, the swirling energy of every dreamers and visionaries oozing from their laughter. Every so often, Martin would lock eyes with Derek, a flicker of recognition floating between them, and with each glance, the urge to approach grew more intense. Maybe he could share his story, maybe he could show Martin that he too possessed dreams worth acknowledging. Hours seemed to fly by amidst the opulence, but just as Derek began feeling truly absorbed, a powerful voice broke through the chatter. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here tonight." It was Martin standing before the crowd, energy radiating from him like light. The crowd erupted in applause, the excitement palpable. Derek's heart raced. Luxury raffle, what did that even mean? Derek's palms began to sweat. He had always dreamt of having a car, but never had he dared to dream of something so extravagant. The thought of driving a luxury car felt like a distant fantasy. Yet the mere idea sent adrenaline coursing through his veins as visions of freedom and possibility danced in his mind. And then there it was, the moment when Martin began calling out tickets. A buzz coursed through the gathering. Each ticket held the weight of dreams, and excitement crackled in the air, wrapping around Derek like a warm embrace. As the draw unfolded, Derek's fingers tangled with his own ticket, the crumpled slip of paper feeling heavy in his hand. All around him, hope radiated. It was infectious, and for a second he allowed himself to imagine it him, wielding the keys to a piece of luxury, rolling down the city streets. Martin called out and the crowd erupted once again. Derek's heart sank for a moment. It wasn't him. The crowd leaned forward and without warning he pointed straight at Derek. Riley shouted, her excitement spilling into the air. Derek blinked in shock, disbelief crawling over him like a cold sweat. He whispered as the world around him faded into a blur. Yes, you. Riley cheered, pushing him gently toward the stage. Uncertain, he walked to the front, his legs feeling heavy with disbelief. Could this really be happening? The spotlight seemed blinding as he approached Martin, who wore a gleeful smile, almost as if he had known how this would unfold all along. Martin exclaimed, enthusiasm radiating from him. You've just won a luxury car. More than that, this moment represents all that you can accomplish with courage. The applause washed over him like a warm wave, yet all he felt was a whirlwind of disbelief. This wasn't happening, was it? Surely it must be a dream. Thank you, he finally managed to say, still grappling with the new reality shifting around him. Excitement crackled in the air and his mind raced with possibilities. Martin placed an arm around Derek's shoulder, pulling him closer. Let's go see your car, he said, guiding him toward the entrance. Outside, the summer air greeted him as they stepped into the night. The valet stood beside a line of luxurious cars, each glistening under the streetlights like rare jewels. And then he saw it, a sleek silver sports car that seemed to practically hum with energy, a predator waiting in repose. This is it, your prize. It's not just a vehicle, it's a vehicle of dreams, Martin said, pride edging his eyes as he handed him the keys. Derek could barely believe it. His fingers curled around the keys, the cold metal anchoring his thoughts. He had been on the sideline of his life for too long, too terrified to take the leap. But now this, a key to freedom, opportunity, and adventure, was finally in his grasp. Sliding into the driver's seat, he felt power ripple through him. The leather was soft against his skin, and the interior dazzled with modern technology and luxury. Martin leaned against the passenger side, an approving grin lighting his face. Now you've got to live boldly, Derek, don't just drive. On the journey, he encouraged, his voice blending authority and warmth. The engine roared to life as Derek turned the key, vibrations resonating through the shell surrounding him. The thrill of possibility ignited within him, the pulses of empowerment pushing away doubts that had long lived in his mind. Let's take it for a spin, he suggested, hesitating for just a moment before finding his confidence. Martin nodded, eyes gleaming with approval. As they rolled into the street, Derek felt alive. The city twinkled under the night sky, each street filled with stories waiting to be uncovered. He flipped the radio on, the sound wrapped around him, enveloping him in the rhythm of the night. He drove with purpose, weaving through the city, each turn boosting adrenaline and daring like he was writing his own story as he went along. Riley's excitement radiated from the backseat. She cheered him on, adding a thrill that only made him feel stronger. He exclaimed, laughing wholeheartedly. Each street became a new adventure. Freedom was pulsating through every inch of him. Riley shouted, her voice bubbling with enthusiasm. The wind whipped through their hair, the thrill of driving coursing through his veins like lifeblood. For the first time, Derek didn't just feel like an onlooker. He felt like a participant, like a player in a game he was no longer just watching. As the night wore on, they drove through the heart of the city, the lights twinkling like stars that had fallen from the sky. Derek felt transformed, shedding the old skin of self-doubt and insecurity with each mile traveled. I always dreamed of being someone who could make a difference, who could see the world from a different viewpoint, he thought, joy stretching across his face. This is just the beginning, Martin said, his gaze fixed ahead. And in that moment, each heartbeat thrummed with new purpose. Derek realized he didn't just win a car tonight, he had won himself, a part of himself he had buried for too long. As they pulled back up to the hotel, the enormity of what had just happened settled within him. The evening had been nothing less than transformative. He was no longer Derek, the delivery driver known only for passing through life. He was Derek, the man who had grasped opportunity and dared to believe. When he parked the car, he turned to Riley and Martin, the exhilaration of adventure still coursing through him. With the air filled with laughter and the promise of new beginnings, he stepped out of the car, ready to face the world. The path ahead was bright, lit with possibility. In that moment, he realized that every story could shift, that courage could be ignited in unexpected ways. And as he walked ahead, head held high, he was ready to own each moment, to make every dream attainable and every drive memorable. He stood at the entrance of the opulent Crestwood Hotel, feeling like a moth drawn to a flame. Outside, the evening air buzzed with the sounds of the city, but inside, everything was silky smooth, like a well-rehearsed performance. Derek took a deep breath and pushed through the glass doors, stepping into a world that sparkled with the kind of elegance he had only glimpsed in magazines. Everywhere he looked, people mingled in tailored suits and stunning gowns, their laughter ringing like music. It felt like a different planet, a planet of affluence and charm where he was a mere visitor, an outsider. A wave of anxiety washed over him as he adjusted his shirt collar, wishing he had chosen something more refined than the simple button-up he had grabbed from his closet. As he approached the front desk to check in, the receptionist barely looked up from her computer. She asked flatly, her expression indifferent. "Derek Matthews," he replied, his voice barely audible above the sound of clinking glasses and the soft chatter of evening festivities. "Room 505, she responded, sliding a keycard toward him, not bothering with a smile or any personalization. Derek picked it up, a shadow of disappointment lingering over him. He felt like a ghost passing through a place filled with the living. With the keycard in his pocket, he turned and headed toward the elevator. As he waited, he glanced around, taking in the grandeur. The polished marble floor glimmered under the soft lights, and the subtle scent of lavender wafted through the air. In that moment, he couldn't shake the feeling of being a small fish in a vast ocean. The elevator dinged, jolting him from his thoughts. Inside, he pressed the button for the 5th floor and felt the soft hum of the machinery as it ascended. He watched the numbers light up, feeling a mix of anticipation and dread. What was he doing here? This gala was supposed to be a chance to network, to meet people who could change his life, yet here he was, feeling more lost by the second. When the elevator doors opened, Derek stepped into a corridor lined with plush carpeting and exquisite art. It led to his room, but as he approached, curiosity tugged at him. What lay beyond the doors of the ballroom? What kind of people danced and mingled within? He hesitated for a beat, his heart pounding as he made the decision. This was his night. He had worked too hard and saved every penny just to walk into this world. He turned away from his room and followed the sounds of joy echoing down the hallway. As he entered the ballroom, he was immediately enveloped in a dazzling atmosphere. The space was alive with color and energy. Guests swirled around like leaves in the wind, laughter rising above the soft strains of music. Derek stood still for a moment, drinking it all in. It was as though he had stepped into a world full of vibrancy and life, but as he observed, he felt that familiar grip of insecurity squeeze around his heart. He adjusted his shirt once more, feeling the weight of his own ordinary existence settle heavily on his shoulders. This was a place where dreams sparkled, and he was just a drop in an ocean of shimmering desires. Then he caught sight of a familiar figure. Martin Warren, the name echoed like a mantra in the charity circles he had read about. Martin was a business mogul, a man who wielded influence like a conductor leading an orchestra, and its music captivated everyone. Derek watched as Martin spun stories, laughter bursting from those around him as if they were pulled into his world. In contrast, Derek felt like he was standing at the edge of a great performance, unable to take the stage. He chided himself for thinking he could mingle with such elites. Just as doubt threatened to drown him, a lively figure bumped into him. "Hey there," a bright-eyed woman with fiery red hair beamed at him. He stammered. "Riley," she said, extending her hand with a grin. "Derek," he replied, shaking her hand. "Well, come on," she exclaimed like she was casting him in a lead role. Before he knew it, Riley had pulled him toward a group of animated guests. They welcomed him like an old friend, their laughter and stories tumbling around him. For the first time that evening, he allowed himself to relax. As the conversations flowed, Derek felt the knot in his stomach begin to loosen. He shared stories about his job-delivering packages, the interesting people he met, and the dreams he nurtured on the side. The warmth of genuine interest bounced among the crowd, and for the first time he felt a flicker of hope ignite in his chest. Riley kept him engaged, leaning in closer to hear his every word, her laughter infecting everyone around. While he spoke, he kept sneaking glances at Martin, who was now on stage, captivating the crowd with charm and charisma. "Ladies and gentlemen," Martin's voice rang out, and the crowd quieted, their attention fully on him. "Thank you for coming to this year's charity gala." The energy in the room shifted, anticipation hanging like a thick blanket. A wave of excitement rippled through the crowd. Derek felt his heart skip a luxury car. He scanned the audience, absorbing their eager faces lit up with joy. Could he dare to even consider his name being drawn? Martin grabbed a microphone and the crowd hushed. "But to win, you must have a ticket." Derek gripped his ticket tightly, feeling the paper crinkle in his palm. As numbers were called out, each moment felt like hours. He focused on every syllable, each heartbeat echoing in his ears. It was exhilarating, terrifying, and exhilarating all over again. Martin announced, and cheers erupted from the crowd. Derek froze, feeling a rush of despair. It wasn't him. The dreams he had flirted with were slipping away again, but then a rising chatter caught his attention. "Oh," Riley pointed directly at him. He gasped, stunned. "Yeah, that's you," she urged. With adrenaline shooting through his veins, Derek realized they were all cheering for him. Encouraged by Riley's enthusiasm, he climbed onto the stage. The lights felt blinding, but there in the spotlight, he felt an unfamiliar swirl of elation and fear. "Martin," said, extending a hand toward him. At that moment, the world around him erupted into applause and cheers. It felt like a dream, a surreal experience. He had read books and watched movies about moments like this, but had never thought it could actually happen to him. "Thank you," he managed to say, shock wrapping around his words. It was unreal. A car, me. For a moment he stood there paralyzed by disbelief, but the cheers from the crowd bolstered him. Martin said, motioning toward the door as he beckoned with a smile. Derek couldn't help but glance back at Riley, who was beaming proudly. She winked at him as if they shared some secret understanding. He followed Martin outside, the cool night air washing over him, a mix of excitement and disbelief swirling inside. They stepped into the parking area, nestled among a line of beautiful vehicles. One stood out, a sleek silver sports car that gleamed under the streetlight, each curve and line a testament to luxury and craftsmanship. "Here she is," Martin said, handing Derek the keys. Derek's heart raced as he took the keys, the cool metal feeling foreign yet exhilarating. He could hardly believe it. This was a life he had only daydreamed about. "I can't accept this," he stammered, the reality overwhelming him. Martin asked, a playful grin on his face. "You did win it fair and square. This is the beginning of something new." With a deep breath, Derek climbed into the driver's seat, the leather feeling like a welcoming hug. He turned the key, the engine roaring to life in a harmonious growl. The vibrancy of power coursed through him, an exhilarating rush he had never felt before. "This is about more than just a car, Derek. This represents courage, a leap into the unknown." Martin encouraged, leaning against the car, pride glittering in his eyes. Derek's dreams crashed into reality, awakening something deep within him. Suddenly, the idea of being just a delivery driver faded away like the morning fog. There was more for him on the horizon. "Take it for a drive," Martin urged. Derek nodded, excitement thrumming in his chest. As he pulled away from the curb, the night opened up before him like a blank canvas, anticipation coursing through his veins. The world transformed into a blur of lights and laughter, and he could feel the rush of freedom coursing through him. As he drove, the exhilaration bubbled to the surface. The speed, the roar of the engine, it was intoxicating. He could feel the weight of the night lifting, embracing a new chapter of possibilities. Riley exclaimed, her voice brimming with enthusiasm from the back seat. Derek shot back, letting the thrill propel him forward. Every turn, every mile, he felt the transformation inside him take shape. The confidence he had long searched for surged through him like a powerful tide. It wasn't just about the car, it was about the freedom it represented, a freedom to believe, to stretch beyond what he thought was possible. The city became a whirlwind of illumination and energy as they zipped through the streets. Derek turned up the music, letting the upbeat rhythm seep into his soul, the joy of living just outside his fingertips. He shouted, laughter bubbling forth as the wind whipped through the open windows. "See," Riley shouted back, her excitement infectious. And there it was, the moment he realized he was no longer an outsider. He was part of this world, a world where dreams transformed from wishes to reality, even if they began quietly. With each passing block, he felt more alive than ever before. He was capturing a moment of existence that would forever shift his trajectory, a choice to embrace ambition, to take the reins of his life. As they drove back toward the hotel, a sense of pride washed over him. There was no longer just the man behind the wheel. There was purpose and intent mixed into every fiber of his being. Derek Matthews, once a ghost, was now a force that would blaze his own path. The headlights illuminated the hotel entrance as he pulled in, the sounds of the nightlife swirling around him. He felt invincible. This was just the beginning, and he was standing on the edge of everything he had ever desired. With the engine still humming, he turned to Riley and Martin, gratitude overflowing. "You believed in me when I didn't. Thank you both for this incredible night." And as he stepped out of the car, a realization washed over him, that the journey had always been his to define. With courage and determination, he could seize the life he desired, taking with him not just the keys to a luxury car, but the keys to his future, each turn carrying the promise of countless adventures yet to come. This was Derek's moment, and he was ready to drive into tomorrow, unafraid and unstoppable. The doors to the upscale Crestwood Hotel slid open, and Derek stepped inside, his heart pounding with a mix of excitement and anxiety. The lobby was a whirlwind of affluent guests dressed to the nines, their laughter ringing like gold coins falling on polished marble. Instantly he felt out of place, like a lone cloud in a bright blue sky. He lingered for a moment, taking in the stunning chandeliers that sparkled overhead and the plush seating tucked into cozy corners. This was not just another night. This was the charity gala he had dreamed of for months, an event that could change everything. Yet here he was, a delivery driver in a wrinkled shirt, surrounded by the glamorous elite. Summoning every ounce of courage, he approached the front desk. The receptionist barely glanced at him as she typed on her computer, her fingers dancing over the keys like she was conducting a symphony. She asked, her tone flat. "Derek Matthews," he replied, his voice trembling just a bit. Her eyes flickered to the screen. "Room 508. "Enjoy your stay," she said as she handed him a keycard, her attention already drifting back to the computer. Derek nodded, a lump settling in his throat. "Thanks," he murmured, turning away. But instead of heading to his room, he hesitated for a moment, his heart racing with a sudden surge of determination. This was his chance to break free from his ordinary life, a chance to walk among those whose footsteps he had long admired but never dared to follow. He took a deep breath and pushed through the crowd toward the elegant ballroom, his pulse quickening in anticipation. When he entered the room, the atmosphere enveloped him like a warm embrace, a soft blend of laughter and music swirling around him. He stood at the threshold, awash in brilliant light, feeling the overwhelming desire to step forward and join the festivities. But just as doubt crept back in, he caught sight of a tall man at the center of it all. Martin Warren, everyone knew the name. He was a titan of business, a man whose charisma could light up a room. Derek watched as Martin effortlessly moved from one circle to another, a king in his castle, his anecdotes gripping the room's attention like a magnet. The envy stirred in Derek's chest, and for a moment he felt like a child peeking into a candy store, filled with wonder yet acutely aware that he didn't belong. Just as he was about to retreat back into the shadows, a woman bumped into him, her laughter breaking through the tension. "Oh, sorry about that," she said, her eyes dancing with energy. "I'm Riley." Her bright aura was infectious, pulling him in. "I'm just taking it all in," he replied, managing a shy smile. Riley declared, grabbing his arm with enthusiasm. "Come on." She led him deeper into the ballroom, and he found himself swept up in her excitement. The next thing he knew, they were surrounded by a lively group that welcomed him with warmth. As Derek shared snippets of his life about delivering packages and dreaming of something bigger, the walls that had hemmed him in began to crumble. Here, among new friends, he felt a flicker of belonging. They laughed and cheered as the hour rolled on, and the layers of his doubts peeled away, revealing a truer version of himself, someone who could enjoy this surreal experience. The conversations flowed and the drinks poured. Derek caught occasional glimpses of Martin Warren. Martin was now on stage, his microphone gripped in a confident hand. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight." The crowd applauded, their excitement palpable. Derek felt a rush of adrenaline. This was not just a gala, but an opportunity to connect, to network. And then Martin announced something that made Derek's heart skip. Gasps filled the room, followed by a wave of laughter and cheers. The energy surged, and he gripped his ticket tighter, feeling as if he could almost will the night to end favorably. "Imagine winning a car like that," someone in the group said, eyes gleaming with daydreams. Derek could feel his stomach tighten with longing. The thought of zooming through the city in a luxury car felt like a childhood fantasy spun from fairy tales. Martin called out, and cheers erupted, but with each number a sense of despair pushed harder against him, weighing him down. This wasn't a fairy tale, and dreams weren't meant for people like him. Yet he held onto the thin sliver of hope, imagining what it would feel like to drive a piece of luxury. As the announcements continued, the crowd shifted with excitement, leaning into each moment, filling the space with energy. And then Martin looked right at him. Derek felt a jolt, a mix of disbelief and adrenaline. "That's me," he gasped, frozen for a moment. The laughter and chatter rippled around him, pulling him into the spotlight as they cheered. Riley pushed him, her excitement infectious. With a heart pounding like a drum, Derek made his way to the stage, feeling both elated and terrified. This was it, the moment he had been waiting for, yet he felt like he was standing on a precipice, ready to leap into the unknown. Martin beamed, patting him on the back. The crowd erupted into applause, cheers washing over him like a warm embrace. "You've just won a luxury car." A swell of joy and disbelief surged through Derek, filling every fiber of his being. He stammered, still trying to process what had just happened. "Let's go see your prize," Martin said, motioning toward the exit, and Derek couldn't believe his eyes. The world blurred as they stepped outside, the buzzing atmosphere of the gala replaced by the cool night air. The valet stood next to a sleek silver car that gleamed under the streetlight, its curves sculpted to perfection, a vision of luxury that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Martin announced, handing Derek the keys. Derek's heart raced, his hands trembling slightly as he accepted the keys. This wasn't just a car, it was a key to unlocking limitless possibilities, a doorway to a future he had only dreamed of. He could feel the energy of the night coursing through his veins as he approached the car, the shiny surface reflecting his awe and disbelief. Sliding into the driver's seat felt surreal, the luxury enveloping him as he breathed in the scent of leather. Martin leaned against the car, confidence radiating from him like sunlight. "Tonight is just the beginning, Derek." With a word, the engine roared to life, and the sound echoed in the still night air like a promise. Martin asked, eyes sparkling with encouragement. "More than ever," Derek replied, feeling a rush of exhilaration. He shifted into gear, and the car glided forward, leaving the gala's excitement behind. As he navigated through the city streets, the wind whipped through his hair, blending with the pulse of the music that filled the car. The feeling of freedom washed over him, a beautiful symphony playing in rhythm to his heart. He was no longer invisible, he was finally seen, felt alive. Riley shouted from the backseat, her laughter ringing like a melody. "Thank you for believing in me," he called back, allowing the joy to spiral through his body. The city lights blurred into a dazzling display, illuminating the possibilities painted across the canvas of his mind. He could be anything he wanted to be. The adventure ahead was intoxicating. They drove through bustling streets filled with laughter and joy, the vibrancy of the city matching the new rhythm of his heart. Every corner turned felt like he was discovering parts of himself he'd hidden away, the weight of self-doubt lifting with each pulse of the engine. As they pulled back toward the hotel, a sense of peace settled over him. He was no longer that ordinary delivery driver. He was a part of this world now, a world alive with potential, ambition, and dreams waiting to be seized. When they parked, Derek looked at Martin, gratitude flooding through him. "This night has changed everything for me." "You earned this, Derek, embrace it," Martin said, his eyes filled with sincerity. It was a moment that would linger with him long after this night had faded into memory. The connection, the experiences, the opportunity to break free, it was all a gift he would carry forward. As he stepped out of the car and turned to face the night, he felt the weight of dreams coalescing into reality. This was not just about a luxury car, it was about a new beginning, embracing everything he had longed for. In that moment, he knew he had the power to shape his future, armed with ambition and the belief that dreams could be turned into reality. This was just the beginning of his journey, and as he stood there ready to step into his new life, he could already see endless roads stretching ahead of him, filled with promise and adventure. The night was alive, and so was he. He stepped into the luxurious lobby of the Grand Lux Hotel, feeling a strange mix of excitement and disbelief. The place shimmered like a scene out of a movie. Polished marble floors, towering chandeliers, and the soft murmur of upscale conversations blending together in a harmonious cadence. But as he stood there, a lone figure clad in a simple button-up shirt and jeans, Derek felt like he had stumbled into another world, one he wasn't quite sure he belonged to. He had checked in quietly, almost nervously. The receptionist barely glanced at him beyond her computer screen. "Room 505, she said with an air of indifference, handing him the key card as if it were a mere formality. With a swift nod, Derek turned and made his way toward the elevator, tension spiraling in his chest. He knew why he was here. Tonight was the charity gala, an event promising networking opportunities that could change everything for him. A chance to escape the monotony of his day job as a delivery driver and elevate himself into a life filled with potential. Yet, standing amidst the glitz and glamour around him, he felt like a mere shadow. As he waited for the elevator, he glanced around, his heart thumping louder in his chest with each passing second. The elegance was intoxicating. Striking couples twirled through the room and laughter danced on the air like music. He took a deep breath, just remembering how he had saved every penny, worked late shifts, and sacrificed sleep to afford a ticket to this event. He was tired of being invisible. The elevator doors slid open and he stepped inside, feeling the walls close in around him. The soft hum of the machinery filled the silence as he rode to the 5th floor, the tension in his stomach twisting tighter. But as he opened the doors and stepped onto the plush carpet, something shifted. A surge of courage coursed through him. He was determined to walk into that ballroom to take his shot. As Derek pushed through the doors, the scene unfolded before him in a stunning array of colors and sounds. The ballroom was dazzling. Lights flickered overhead, creating a warm glow over elegantly dressed guests swirling gracefully on the dance floor. Waiters glided through the crowd, trays filled with glimmering glasses of champagne, their golden bubbles sparkling like stars. He hesitated at the entrance, taking it all in. He could feel the energy radiating from the crowd, ambition, hope, laughter. He shifted on his feet, about to retreat back to the safety of his solitude when his gaze fell upon a figure near the center of the crowd. Martin Warren. Everyone knew the name. He was the magnetic businessman with a reputation for philanthropy, a king in his own right. With each story Martin spun, the crowd leaned in closer, captivated by his charm. Derek felt a pang of envy twist in his chest, a longing to be able to command a room like that. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was merely an observer peering in on a world filled with success and abundance. Just as doubt threatened to pull him back, a lively voice cut through the noise. "Hey there." A woman with curly hair approached him, her smile bright and inviting. "I just arrived," he stammered, struggling to project the confidence he lacked. She introduced herself, extending a hand. "Join the party." Derek couldn't help but laugh at her enthusiasm. "Nice to meet you, Derek." Without waiting for his consent, she grabbed his arm and pulled him into the swirl of activity. Before he knew it, he was surrounded by laughter, good-natured banter, and stories that made the night feel alive. For the first time that evening, he felt the pressure begin to melt away. He shared stories about his work, the quirky deliveries, and the funny encounters along the way. The group responded with warmth and interest, pulling him deeper into the experience. As the night rolled on, Derek's confidence began to build. He even stole a few glances at Martin Warren, who had taken the stage to address the guests once again. Derek felt a spark ignite within him. This was more than a gala, it was an opportunity. Martin continued, "Tonight's highlight is a special raffle." The crowd erupted into applause and cheers. Derek's breath hitched. A luxury car, the thought sent a thrill through him. Could he even dare to imagine the feel of the steering wheel, the rush of gliding down a highway with the wind in his hair? As the anticipation swelled, Martin began announcing ticket numbers. With trembling hands, Derek clutched his ticket, heart racing. Will I be the one? Each number called seemed to tug at his hopes and dreams, but with every shout he felt more and more disheartened. It felt boyish, almost foolish, to think he could win something so grand. Martin called, and the crowd erupted. A moment of hope surged, only to dissipate as another winner stepped forward, almost floating in the affectionate spotlight. Then it happened. Derek's heart froze, and the room around him blurred. Could it be? It couldn't be. No way. He looked around, the applause echoing, and to his utter astonishment, he realized people were pointing at him. Riley screamed, her happiness bursting forth like confetti. His body moved on autopilot, adrenaline propelling him to the front of the room, the brightness of the lights washing over him like a wave. The applause rang in his ears, and as he reached the stage, he met Martin's eager gaze. "Congratulations, Derek." Martin's booming voice filled the space, and warmth flooded through Derek. To the crowd, which cheered louder than before, the disbelief was almost palpable. "A luxury car, me." Martin placed a hand on his shoulder, guiding him to the edge of the stage. Together, they stepped outside the hotel, and as Derek's eyes adjusted to the night, he was greeted by a gleaming silver luxury car parked just outside, softly illuminated by the moonlight. It looked like something out of a magazine, bold, sleek, and breathtaking. "Here she is," Martin said, handing Derek the keys. "This isn't just a car, it's a symbol of what's possible." His heart raced as he accepted the keys, the cool metal lingering in his palm like a reminder of this surreal moment. "I can't believe this," he said, stepping closer to the stunning vehicle. "Feel free to take it for a spin," Martin encouraged, his eyes gleaming with enthusiasm. Derek's stomach churned with both excitement and apprehension. Could he really drive it? But there was no question in his mind this was the chance he had dreamed of. He slid into the driver's seat, the luxury engulfing him, and as he gripped the steering wheel, a wave of confidence surged through him. The engine roared to life with a satisfying growl, and as he shifted into gear, the world outside transformed. The city lights glimmered like stars as he pulled away, every street promising adventure, every corner whispering possibilities. Riley cheered from the backseat, her joy untamed. As they glided through the streets, Derek felt the weight of his worries slip away. He wasn't just driving, he was owning it, every moment adding fuel to a burning ambition he had long kept hidden. It was like being set free. The road stretched ahead, beckoning him toward a future that felt alive and vibrant. Even the night seemed to dance around him, wrapping him in its embrace. Laughing with Riley, feeling the car vibrate beneath him, he couldn't help but think about how far he had come. Just a few weeks ago, he had been content with his reality, floating through life with no real direction. Now he felt like he was scripting a story of his own, a tale that had begun to blur the lines between fantasy and reality. "Take the next turn," she urged, her voice bubbling with excitement. They explored the city, laughter spilling out as they played their favorite songs, each note echoing in the air like a promise. With every smile, every burst of laughter, Derek felt more alive, more himself than he had ever known he could be. After a while, they cruised back toward the hotel, filled with a sense of fulfillment that radiated from deep within. The exhilaration sparked new thoughts and desires. The world lay before him like an open book, and he was ready to write every chapter with newfound passion. As they parked, Derek turned to Riley and Martin, overwhelmed with gratitude. "Thank you for believing in me." "Embrace what you have," Martin said, his voice earnest, filled with wisdom. With those words lingering in the air, Derek stepped out of the car, the cool breeze hitting his face. A wave of clarity washed over him. He felt invigorated, filled with the rush of possibilities that lay ahead. He faced the hotel, standing a little taller, a little prouder. This was not merely a night filled with glamour. It was the beginning of a new life, a life where he could finally be seen, where he was no longer limited by his past but driven by every dream that pulsed in his heart. As he walked into the hotel, ready to take on the world, he knew he would carry this moment with him forever, the moment he chose to step out of his comfort zone and embrace everything life had to offer. And as he moved forward, filled with purpose and excitement, he realized that sometimes it only takes one night, one opportunity, and a little courage to change everything. The door slid open, and Derek stepped into the lobby of the Grand Royale Hotel, where the air buzzed with elegance. He felt a rush of exhilaration mixed with anxiety. This was a place of dreams, a realm filled with tall glasses of champagne and silk-tied gentlemen. As soon as he crossed the threshold, he could sense the world shift around him. A voice chirped from the front desk, drawing his attention. The receptionist's smile was bright, but her eyes flickered past him as if she were more interested in the latest arrivals. Derek felt a tightening in his chest as he approached, the mere act of checking and feeling monumental. She asked without looking up, fingers dancing over the keyboard. "Derek Matthews," he replied, trying to inject a sense of urgency into his voice. "Room 512, enjoy your stay," came her automatic response, followed by a cold swipe of the key card across the counter. Just like that, he was checked in, and yet he felt like a ghost slipping into a party he wasn't invited to. Taking a deep breath, he turned away from the desk. His heart raced as he walked to the elevator, feeling the plush carpeting underfoot like a soft cushion that was far too good for him. As the elevator doors closed, he scanned his reflection in the shiny metal, noticing how out of place he looked in his simple button-up and slightly frayed pants. He muttered to himself, doubt creeping back in, but he remembered why, the chance to change everything. He had scrimped and saved just to buy a ticket to this charity gala that promised new connections, opportunities, and perhaps a glimpse of a life that felt so far away. The door slid open on the 5th floor, and Derek stepped out into a long, elegantly decorated hallway. Each step echoed softly, amplifying the solitude that surrounded him. The ballroom was just beyond these doors, the epicenter of everything he hoped to achieve. He He felt the pull, a magnetic force beckoning him to step inside, but the weight of self-doubt tried to hold him back. With each heartbeat thundering in his ears, he reached for the door, his hand hovering just above the handle. "You're meant for this," he whispered to himself. Summoning every ounce of courage, he turned the knob and stepped into a world bursting with laughter, vibrant colors, and glittering lights. A string quartet played softly as elegantly dressed couples glided across the floor. The mingling of voices created an atmosphere that felt alive, intoxicating, and just out of reach. It was breathtaking, but it also highlighted his insecurities. He stood quietly, observing from the sidelines as everyone around him seemed to fit seamlessly into the performance. But then he spotted him, the man of the evening. Martin Warren, a name that echoed in business circles across the country. The crowd seemed to orbit around him, drawn in by his charm and charisma. Every anecdote he shared became a thread, weaving the audience closer together. Derek watched envious, imagining how it would feel to command a room like that, to be the center of attention for once. Just when he thought about retreating into the shadows, a vibrant voice broke through his thoughts. "Hey you look lost." A woman with red curls and sparkling eyes stood beside him, full of life and energy. I'm just checking everything out," he stammered, feeling like he was fumbling through an unfamiliar book. She smiled widely. "I'm Riley, let's get you mingling." Before he could protest, she pulled him toward a group of guests, their laughter contagious. For a moment, the weight on his shoulders lifted. He joined in the stories, shared belly laughs, and felt the warm embrace of connection. The fear of being unnoticed began to fade, replaced by a flicker of hope. As the evening rolled on, he was swept up in conversations filled with aspirations and possibilities. But every so often, Derek found himself stealing glances at Martin, who now commanded the stage. "Tonight we're here to make a difference," Martin proclaimed, his voice resonating through the ballroom. "And as part of that initiative, we're holding a raffle. The grand prize," gasps rippled through the crowd. Derek's heart leaped into his throat. A luxury car. The thought felt both thrilling and absurd. Could he really dream of such opulence? The weight of those words struck Derek. This wasn't just about a car. It was about opportunity, about realigning his destiny. Martin bellowed and the jubilant cheers echoed, but it wasn't his number, and with each successive call, Derek's hope flickered like a candle caught in a breeze. Martin announced next. Derek's heart thudded in his chest as the crowd quieted and then erupted with applause. The realization crashed over him. That number was his. A wave of disbelief washed over him as he caught sight of people pointing, laughter swirling around him. Riley shouted, eyes shimmering with excitement. In a daze, he took a step forward, the world around him fading into the background. As he climbed the few steps to the stage, Derek could hardly believe what was happening. Could this truly be real? Could he really be winning something so extraordinary? Martin exclaimed, the spotlight hitting him like a beacon. Cheers exploded around him, but all he could hear was the rush of blood in his ears. His heart soared, disbelief mingling with exhilaration. He squeaked, his voice barely navigating through his shock. "Let's go see your new ride," Martin said. They stepped outside into the cool evening air, where a majestic silver sports car awaited, gleaming under the streetlights like a precious gem. Derek's breath caught in his throat. This was not just a car, it represented everything, a leap from his current life to a brand new chapter filled with possibilities. Derek exclaimed, running his fingers along the vehicle's sleek curves, soaking in the moment. "Embrace it, man. This is a moment you'll remember," Martin said, handing him the keys, each clink resonating like a tangible promise. But just as Derek stepped into the driver's seat, his pulse racing, a sudden commotion caught his attention. He looked up to see a group gathered near the entrance, their voices rising in panic. A commotion unfolded, and just as he was about to register what was happening, a security guard rushed in, moving swiftly toward him. The guard asked, his tone serious. The vibrant world around him started to blur once again. Derek asked, a knot forming in his stomach. "Come with me," the guard said, gesturing urgently. The atmosphere shifted, suddenly charged with tension. Derek glanced back at Martin and Riley, confusion etched on their faces. He stammered as the guard led him toward the hotel's entrance, away from the cheers and excitement. "Just a precaution," the guard said, though there was no comfort in his words. Derek's heart raced as he followed, weaving through a now silent crowd, eyes following him with curiosity and concern. Was this all about the winner, the victor turned pariah? Anxiety twisted in his gut as they pushed through the lobby doors and into the night. Derek demanded, his voice shaky as he caught sight of the group still gathered near the entrance. "Sir," the guard said, his eyes focused ahead. Misidentified, the words rattled through his mind like a drumbeat. Suddenly, two men in suits stepped forward from the crowd, their expressions unreadable. As they approached, Derek's heart sank. He didn't like the look of them. Something about the way they moved was unsettling, their intentions cloaked in mystery. Derek asked again, his voice rising, panic clawing at his insides. "I just want a car." One of the men turned to him, the tension radiating off him like a palpable force. "We're from the corporate office," he stated firmly. As the reality of the moment sank in, the joyous night suddenly tilted on its axis, spinning out of control. Questions swirled in his mind, fear gripping him like a vice as he stood on the precipice, facing a world filled with seemingly infinite possibilities that now felt as if they were crumbling around him. He hadn't just won a car, he was about to learn that winning was sometimes intertwined with consequences he never imagined. This moment, this night of dreams, was spiraling into a storm, and everything he thought he knew was about to change irrevocably. Derek could only hold his breath, waiting for the revelation that would face him next, teetering on the edge of an unknown fate.